If you're using Claude Code, chances are you have one giant Claude MD file. You keep adding instructions to it, and Claude keeps ignoring half of it. And it's not because the model is bad. It's because you're using one method to do the job of 7. Anthropic just published the official breakdown of how to steer Claude Code. This is straight from Anthropic themselves, and I will link it in the description below. There are 7 distinct ways of how you can give Claude Code instructions. Each one differs in 3 ways: when it loads into the context, whether it survives long sessions, and how much authority it actually carries. In this video, I'm going to be walking through all 7, and at the end, I'll give you a decision framework so you know exactly where each instruction belongs. With that being said, let's get into it. All right, so before we go into each of the methods, you're going to need a mental model. We're going to define every method by 3 questions. Question 1, when does it load? So we have some instructions that load at the beginning of the session and stay there the entire session. Others load on demand and only come up when they're relevant. And some of them never enter the context at all. Question 2, does it survive compaction? When your session gets long, Claude Code will automatically compact your chat history. This allows the context window to remain small. Some of the instructions get re-injected and others are lost. Question 3, what does it cost? Every line that's always loaded burns tokens no matter what. Whether you use it or whether you don't use it, it always burns tokens. And here's the most important part people usually miss. It's not just the token cost that's affected. The more irrelevant instructions you cram into the context, the less Claude follows the ones that actually matter. All right, so let's start with method 1, the Claude MD file. This is the one everyone knows. This is a markdown file at the root of your project. It loads at session start, stays in the context window the entire session, and when Claude Code compacts the conversation, it rereads the file. So in other words, it never gets lost. This makes it the right home for things Claude should always know. For example, things like build commands, directory layout, monorepo structure, coding conventions, team norms, and more. But here's something that most people actually don't know. There are 2 types and they load completely different. Look at the left side. When you start your Claude Code session at your project root, the root Claude MD file and your personal Claude local MD file load at the session start. Those are these ones right here. But now if we take a look at the purple ones in the subdirectories, these do not load at the beginning of the session. They only load on demand. This is known as lazy loading. Only when Claude reads a file from these subdirectories are these Claude MD files actually loaded in. All right, so now let's take a look at the right side. It's the same project, but now we actually start inside of package, right? So just a refresher is that we have a Claude session, and within our Claude session, we have a workspace. So our workspace is starting here, which means that the Claude MD file within API folder can actually be seen now. But the web one is not seen, and it's not loaded in until you use it within this directory. So the rule is simple. Your current working directory decides what loads up front, and everything below it only loads when it's touched. Here's the trap though. In a share repo, the Claude MD file can go really large if it's not maintained. So you have to be really strict with what you're actually adding to your Claude MD files. If different people load different things into the Claude MD file and nothing gets deleted, then every line loads in for every session for every engineer, whether it's relevant or not. So here's the filter. The Claude MD file is for facts that Claude should hold all the time. Build commands, directory layout, conventions. Anthropic's official tip is to keep it under 200 lines. Give it an owner and review any changes to it just like you would code. Everything else should move out. Procedures, go to skills, path-specific constraints, go to rules. And anything that must happen absolutely every single time goes to hooks. And we're going to cover all 3 of those right now. Method 2. These are markdown files inside of a rules subdirectory within .claude. So here's the thing. An unscoped rule, meaning a rule without any path filter, behaves exactly like a regular Claude MD file. Always loaded at session start, re-injected on compaction, always costing tokens. It's literally Claude MD with extra steps. The real power is in path scoping. So here's what a path scoped looks like. You add a paths field to the front matter, and now this rule only loads when you touch a matching file. So for this particular case, all API handlers must validate input with Zod before processing, and it's scoped to specifically the source API API directory and any handler file anywhere in the repo. Alright, so let's take a look at what that actually means in practice. Let's say you're doing a docs only session. You're only editing README files all afternoon. That rule we just mentioned stays completely out of context, meaning 0 tokens are being used up. But the moment Claude reads a file inside of source API directory, the rule loads and applies. That's basically the name of the game. Instructions that only exist when relevant. So a quick decision point. Because rules and subdirectory Claude MD files sound similar, if the concern lives in one folder, then a subdirectory Claude MD file is fine. If it's a cross-cutting concern, something that appears in multiple corners of the codebase but not in all of them, like handler files scattered everywhere, that's a path scoped rule. Alright, so let's take a look at method 3, skills. This is Anthropic's own diagram and it shows you exactly why they're so efficient. So let's start at the top. At the beginning of each session, the only thing that loads in is a short snippet from each skill, specifically the name and description of each skill. These are all skills, and the actual body of the skill is sitting memory on disk, costing nothing. Then the user asks for something. In this case, they're asking for PDF. So then Claude looks at its menu of skills, matches the description with the user request, and it does a tool call on this skill. And sometimes skills will reference other files. In this case, our PDF skill references the forms.md file. So Claude decides to follow the reference from the skill MD to the form files, and then it does a tool call on that file. So the way I like to think about it is like this. At session start, Claude only loads in the menu. The kitchen doesn't start to cook until you order. That's why you can have almost 50 skills and it essentially will cost you nothing because only the name and description is shown per skill. Alright, so let's take a look at what a skill actually looks like. Structurally, a skill is a folder inside of skills folder with a skill MD file. This skill MD file contains a name, a description, and a body. And this is the one thing you have to burn into your brain. Claude only sees the description up front. This is how Claude determines whether or not to invoke the particular skill. So make sure you write it like it matters because it really does. Alright, so one more detail on skill. On compaction, invoked skills get re-injected, but there's a shared budget across all of them. If you invoke a lot of skills in one session, then the oldest ones will drop first. So what actually belongs in a skill? Procedures, deploy workflows, release checklists, review processes. If you have a 30-line procedure sitting in your Claude MD file right now, that's a skill. Method 4, sub-agents. And this is where things get really interesting because sub-agents have a superpower that the other methods don't: isolation. A sub-agent is a markdown file inside of the sub-agents directory. Like skills, only name, description, and tool list get loaded in at session start. But when Claude calls a sub-agent through the agent tool, something different happens. It spins up its own completely fresh context window. A sub-agent does its work over here and it only returns the summary once it's done. So let's think about what that actually means for something like a deep code-based search or a log analysis. That work might involve 40 tool calls, dozens of file reads, and piles of intermediate results you will never look at again. With sub-agents, all of that happens within the sub-agent's context window. None of it will pollute your main session. Your main session just gets 3 lines. Here's what I found, and then the results. So when should you use a skill versus a sub-agent? Here's the cleanest way to think about it. A skill plays out inside your main thread. You see every step and you can steer every step. A sub-agent runs in isolation and only returns the results. So if you want to watch it work, then use a skill. If you want just the answer, use a sub-agent. And this pattern scales. Sub-agents can nest up to 5 levels deep. And with dynamic workflows, you can orchestrate tens to hundreds of background agents. The orchestration plan lives in script variables, not in Claude's main session. That's how you can scale without losing instruction quality. Method 5, hooks. And this might honestly be the most underrated feature in all of Claude Code. Everything we've covered so far is an instruction. You're asking Claude to do something, and Claude decides. Hooks are different. Hooks are code that fire deterministically on events in Claude's lifecycle. This diagram is a full map of the Claude Code session, and every box you see is an event that a hook can fire on. Session start, user prompt, and look at this eject agentic loop in the middle. Before every tool call, after every tool call, when sub agents start and stop, when tasks complete, all the way down to pre-compaction and session end. I want to focus on two of these. Pre-tool use fires before any tool call is executed, and hooks can block the call. Post-tool use happens right after. These two alone cover most of what you'll actually ever need. Here's the line from the article that sums up the entire mindset shift. The model choosing to run a formatter is different from the formatter running automatically. If you have always run prettier after edits in your Claude MD file, you're rolling dice. Claude will probably do it. Probably. A post-tool use hook doesn't ask, it just runs every single time. And it goes further. A pre-tool use hook can inspect any tool call before it executes and exit with code 2 to deny it. Dangerous command, blocked. Deploy to production on a Friday, blocked. This matters because instructions are not guardrails. In a long session under ambiguous constraints or with a prompt injection sitting in a file that Claude reads, a written rule can fail. A hook cannot be talked out of anything. If you need something to never happen, that's a hook or a permission file, not a sentence in a Claude MD file. There are 5 hook types: command, HTTP, and MCP tool hooks execute deterministically. Prompt and agent hooks use model judgment for the fuzzy cases. They're registered in settings.json, and because the logic lives outside of the context window, the cost is basically 0. All right, so there's 2 more methods, and I'm gonna give you the 30-second version. Output styles inject directly into the system prompt, which gives them the highest instruction following weight of anything we've covered so far. But it comes with a big warning. A custom output style replaces Claude Code's default system prompt unless you explicitly tell it not to do so. So make sure you check the built-in styles first. Proactive, explanatory, and learning covers most use cases. And appending the system prompt with a CLI flag is the safer cousin. Purely additive, per invocation, and it doesn't touch Claude's role. Just know it has diminishing returns the more you pile on. There's a deeper breakdown of both in the article, which is linked in the description. Alright, so let's bring it all together. This article is where the checklist gets brutally practical. 5 mistakes, 5 fixes. Let's go. 1. You wrote every time X, always do Y in Claude MD file. If it needs to happen reliably, that's a hook. You wrote, never do this in the Claude MD file. Same problem, but the stakes are higher. A real guardrail needs to be deterministic. Hooks and permissions enforce. You have a 30-line procedure in the Claude MD file. That's a skill. You have an API-specific rule with no path scoping, loaded even when you're writing documents. 5. Your personal preferences are in the project-level file your whole team shares. Every file-based method has a user-level counterpart. Your semantic commit message preference belongs there, not in the repo. And here's the whole video in one flowchart. Screenshot this. Is it a fact Claude MD always needs? Put that in the Claude MD file. Only relevant for certain paths? It's a scoped rule. Is it a side task with noisy output that you'll never reference again? Use a sub agent. Must it happen every time or never at all? Hook. That's it. That's the framework. So that's the 7 methods. And remember the 3 questions that defines them all. When does it load? Does it survive compaction? And what does it cost? Once you got a few of those working, you can bundle skills, sub-agents, hooks, and output styles into a plugin and share the whole setup with your team. The article and the docs are linked in my description. If you want to go deeper with building with Claude Code or AI automation, check out my school community, AI Academy. First link down there. And if this video saved your Claude MD file from becoming a 900-line graveyard, drop a like, subscribe for more AI engineering content, and let me know in the comments which of these 7s is the most effective for you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.